Good morning, Bears. That is the sound of your morning. Seize the day. It is Tuesday morning, September 18th, 2018. Man, it's good to see you all today. Sorry about the delay there. Had a little bit of communist interference from iTunes. It was it was driving me up the wall, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, did not want to be working for me this morning, and I was less than pleased, as you might imagine. You got other music instead when I started up the stream. That was pretty darn funny. I was amused, sort of, just briefly. Very, very briefly. But at least I got things to cooperate in the end. So, let's see here. I'm trying to move some things out the way so I can actually read your chats and things here. It's always fun working with the technicals of this show. But, Kick, I'm sorry. We got started later. I know you're going to be busy today. I'm not planning on doing an hour and a half today. It's probably going to be a bit shorter than the hour and a half of yesterday. But yes, I empathize with you, Dom, on your computer issue there. I know they can be pieces of crud. Sorry, just trying to reach my coffee here. Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for coming in yesterday. Yesterday's interview was a blast. Had a lot of fun. Yeah. Introducing you. Can't hear anything? Oh, you can't hear anything. Okay. That's not everybody, right? Spam bot. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming out for that. That was it was a lot of fun to be able to bring in Harold, and it worked out amazingly well. You know, I can't believe how nicely the computer cooperated for the majority of that. That was really cool. Yeah, that's what I figured last Moomin. By the way, last Moomin, is it you that has a bunch of very interesting musical videos on Vimeo? Is that Moomin who's got that up there? Because maybe it's somebody else, but I thought it was you. And it sure seemed like you. But yeah, Moomin, do you have musical videos on Vimeo? Okay, cool. Because I just discovered a bunch of stuff that I thought was yours yesterday. I was looking for Big Bear to see if he's been active on Vimeo at all, since he said he was thinking about going that way. And I didn't find him. Oh, I didn't find any new stuff. But, yeah, I saw a bunch of these really cool tunes that were up there from Moomin. And y'all need to check it out. Moomin's quite talented, and he's got some interesting ideas that are, dealing with current issues and stuff like that. Pretty neat. I dug it. Oh, excuse me. That was really good. Good coffee for the morning. Absolutely, Moomin. You're more than welcome, man. Okay, I'll be honest. The coffee's not really that good. It's cheap Aldi coffee. It's like the least expensive that we could get, because we got like 200 and some ounces for like $4 or something. I can't remember how much it was. It was cheap. Excuse me. They should have a yawn button here. Aldi does have some good stuff for very reasonable prices, like more than reasonable a lot of times, and I'm a fan of that. Right, Kitten? Kitten, she's been all up in this business over here. I've been having to teach her not to jump up on the table up here. And to be very, very clear, no, this is, like, the computer keyboard is not a place for you to use, especially when I'm using it. Or it's not a place for you to sleep. Let's put it that way. Cats, computer keyboards, only when we're using them, right? I don't know if anybody's ever seen that. I've mentioned it before, but a YouTuber and a guy who later became one of the vice presidents at BuzzFeed, he went by the YouTube name ZayFrank1, And he used to do these things. I think we've talked about before, true facts about different animals, and some of them were pretty funny. Marsupials was a particularly funny one, but silly stuff. At any rate, he'd also done a bit. Oh wow, man! I squirreled myself. No, there it comes. Yeah, Sad Cat and Sad Dog Diaries. You go watch the Sad Dog Diary. Just search that on YouTube if you've never seen it. And that's this guy, Zay Frank one, who's narrating it. And then after you watch that, you go watch the Sad Cat Diaries. And it's kind of the juxtaposition to all of that. Like the dog calls the people his dearest human, right? Dearest human allowed me to play ball with him in the yard. And then when it's the cat sounds very different. It's like, the authorities have forgotten me once again. They have closed the door to the bedroom. Now I must sing the song of my people all night long. Yes, I acknowledged that Dom is here, Kodiak. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Yes, cats do that. Our cat does not sing the song of her people. However, our dog, our Spectrum puppy, she definitely does. She's constantly... That's Gita for you. I don't know if you folks have this in your area, but we certainly do in ours. Whenever there's intense weather or something like that, we have like the warning sirens that go off. And so every first, was it Tuesday of the month or something like that? They play the warning sirens around here. They do the steady tone. Get off. They play it. She's trying to yank the tablecloth. Cat is. Yes, my cat. My cat is an instigator. She will just walk into the kitchen to tease the dogs. Go. I tossed a towel at her to make her leave. She keeps thinking she's going to come over here and yank on my table. I said, no. No cats were harmed in the making of this live stream. Let's just put it that way. I just threw a towel in her general direction. That was enough. Let's see. No, I was talking about the... I hate that, man. My brain is not with it this morning. I'm trying to get energized and keep in the flow of things here. But what was I talking about before I talked about throwing something at my cat? It's in there. It'll come back. One of you will mention something, then maybe I'll get back to whatever I was saying. Oh, anyway, yeah. This is something that we want to improve in the show. So if you want to have better brain health, right? What I need to do is get a picture of the darn stuff up here. That would be good. You want to invest in some Neuro 67. Neuro 67. I don't need to go Shapiro for it, but I do feel compelled. Like every time I start like encouraging an ad of some kind, I feel the Shapiro-ness want to come forth. Like I feel a yarmulke growing from my scalp. I feel, well, he doesn't have the gullet, but just by association with Steve Pinder, I feel a gullet starting to curl up at the tip of my neck. The Neuro 67, if you look in the description, you can go get more information about it because there's videos on the landing page. But it is a brain health supplement. It's actually really cool. Formulated by a neuroscientist and biochemist named Dr. Germán Garcia Fresco. And it's extracts from a whole bunch of different plants and things like that. And all of these things, I guess, were researched, like peer-reviewed studies, very different from a lot of the other supplements that are out there in that regard. And Neuro 67 is the name of it. And it's been talked about in a number of different big podcasts. Like I know Rogan uses the Alpha Brain, and he's real big about that. But this, I think, would top Alpha Brain easily. I just need to be consistently using it, and then I'd probably be in better shape. It essentially is a a cognitive boost. It just allows your brain to have the nutrients that it's supposed to be getting every day. Kind of like you take vitamin supplements for the rest of your body, but we don't take ones that are necessarily specially formulated for cognitive health. Thank you, Disaster Sirens. Thank you. That's what I was talking about and couldn't remember. Green smoothies, also good. Some people take the Neuro 67 capsules and they mix them into green smoothies, and it's even better. That's just a thought. It's something that I'd like to be doing more regularly, and at some point I'm going to make a deeper investment to do that on a long-term basis. I mean, they're not cheap. It's like 60 something bucks a bottle, or 59, I think, per bottle. Of course, you can get like 6 at a time, and then it's like way cheaper. I think if you buy 3 at a time, they cut the price per bottle down significantly. If you buy 6 at a time, they cut the price per bottle down pretty significantly. But when you decide that's something you want to do, you can support Big Drum Bear. So at any rate, because we get a little honey in our pot when you go to do that through the link that is in our description. Right? You take a lot of Cialis. No boner spiders for you. Is that how it works? I think Inspector knows what I'm talking about. Oh my goodness, you guys are killing me. I haven't forgotten about warning sirens or disaster sirens. They're still in my head. Okay, so I'm going to do that now before I completely forget about it. I enjoy just these one-on-one shows with you guys too, because they're so much fun. I just like talking with all the people in the chat. Snake Island, yes. Oh man, if you didn't watch last week's Crowder, y'all need to go do that. Oh my gosh. Since Dom's busy, I think Pender's going to take over the ridiculous PayPal posts. Man. I was dying at the intro to last week's LWC, but I'll come to that in a moment. So the disaster sirens, Chunk and the other dogs, every Tuesday when they do the first Tuesday of the month, I should say, they do the disaster sirens around here. They do one long consistent tone, and then they'll stop for a minute or so, and then they'll do a wavering tone. And so both of those, it gets the dog's ears going, and they just react to it, and they start howling together, like in harmony to that. And it's hilarious. Sometimes I'll join in with them. Like I can get them all howling when I howl with them. It's pretty funny. One of these days I'll get like us howling in concert. I think that would be a fun thing. And then maybe find a way to put it to music. I don't know why I haven't thought to do it before, but it definitely needs to be done at some point, because it would be just pure joy for everyone. It would be hilarious. But yeah, I think they're a little nervous because they don't understand what's going on. And so when I'm here for that, I can at least help to calm them and just howl along with them, and then we all have fun together. But I tell them it's okay. It's going to be over soon. We just howl through it and we have fun. And then the next one comes up the wavering tone. They're all right there along with it. It's so funny. But at any rate, so yeah, my dogs sing the song of their people, not my cat. Anyway, so yeah, the intro to Crowder's Thursday live stream last week. Oh my gosh. Big Bear sitting there. He's so quick with different stuff, and then they're all trying to remember what a priapism is. And I knew immediately, what he was talking about. Had I been there, unlike Gerald Morgan Jr., I would have spoken up right away and said priapism, and saved him from that. So basically what I'm saying is, Steven Crowder, if you're ever going to watch any episodes of my show, you probably should hire me. You should probably have me. And I'd love to move to Texas and work for you on that show. I think that'd be wonderful. Although I wonder if I could hack it, because it sounds like the work environment there takes a lot, and I don't know if my ethic, my drive is at that level yet. I'll be honest, but I'd be willing to push myself to get to a level where I could be of value in an environment like that, because that would just be hilarity every day I go to work. Like, I'd be excited to get in there and just make hilarious stuff that's worthwhile, that's meaningful. I'm sure my wife would love that. Maybe I could get her to get into Crowder more if, we got to know the Crowders, she could hang out and She could walk off her. Oh man, that'd be so funny. Let's see here. Cats are funny. Yeah, right. No white privilege. Oh my gosh. So they take pet roll call. That's great, Inspector. I love it. Pet roll call. Yes. Yes, Michael Jackson. Oh man, you guys have hilarious stuff. So much fun. So much fun hanging with funny bears. So yeah, the Snake Island business, and then like Big Bear looked severely like disturbed by that thought. Like I wonder how much of that they talked about like in pre-show, but that's funny. That was really, really funny. He's like, I'm really gullible, so are you guys just messing with me, or is there a real Snake Island? It's like, well, between Snake Island and boner spiders, I'm supposed to sleep tonight now. Speaking of the boner spiders, yes, I need to cash in on my white privilege. You tell him, Bender. That's right, because I'm clearly privileged and very. I'm not like I've thought about that for so long. Like, look at this. Even with the lights, like this is not white. There's nothing white about this. It's just, it's not white. Now, I'm a more tan individual, so yeah, I'm looking at my gut here, and I'm just saying, is there white on my gut? And it's not. It's like, it's pink. I'm not going to show you my gut because I care about my audience, and I like to see it stay around. But no, that's not saying it'll never happen. It might inadvertently, but Kodiak. Oh man. Oh man. Whew. Oh man. I'll say it a third time, right? That makes it more emphatic. Oh man, I'm thinking back to old Adam Sandler, the longest pee. Who remembers Adam Sandler's The Longest Pee? That was a funny one. I just spilled my coffee. That's not right. Wow. Okay. Well, David certainly changed the tone in here. But you know, that's old school. You know, kind of. You got to do what you got to do, and you are Analog Bear, so you're all about the old school. It makes sense, you know. I think I can trust Steve Pender not to eat me being Jewish and all, because that's not kosher. Although you don't follow kosher anymore since you're a Christian, you're kind of like, oh, we don't do that anymore. And apparently you haven't read your Bible, so I'm just teasing you, man. But I'm serious. No, Jive turkey. This is so good, man. So today, what was I going to talk about? What I was going to talk about was life and death a little bit. We're living in a world these days where stuff looks pretty insane a lot of times. I mean, you know, people are having to, how would I put that? Learn about flying snakes and Snake Island and boner spiders, and it's a dangerous time. I mean, there's all these kinds of ways that we could potentially die. But no, I'm thinking more about things in the news. You know, hurricanes and scandals amidst Supreme Court judge confirmation hearing, Russian collusion, but more so like real concerns, like, and hurricane is a real concern. Let me say otherwise. The state of Canada with Bill C-16, continuing issues within our own country to battle for the culture and maintain our ability to speak as we will speak. Kodiak would eat a White Russian, yes. You'd probably devour that, I have no doubt. With all those different things that are going on, and there's more and more and more things that happen every day that are just disheartening, you know. The attitude, race relations, that's kind of what I was thinking of. Sometimes they're at really poor states in certain areas, and you feel afraid to walk out your door, you know. more and more people I know are kind of afraid of dying in this kind of environment, or their children or something like that. You always have that impending fear, I think, that lurks in the hearts of many, concern with like what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to survive through this? And the fear of death definitely propels us at times to be more aware of what's going on around us, to stay on alert, and it's like what people that get deployed deal with at times when we know that there's the potential for attack and that we could die at any given time. We're on edge. I talked about this a little while back when I went and did the impromptu, hey, let's go to the park episode a little while ago. I ended up talking a little bit about my experiences in Iraq, and I remember plenty of times where I thought this could be the end. This could be it. I don't know, but maybe not. And there was a sense of fear, but at the same time, it was not. It was somewhere in between fear and just completely turned off about it. It wasn't joy by any means, but it was somewhere between fear and numbness. And it was like an awareness, like, okay, this is happening, and sort of an acceptance of that. Like, all right. It was different when I'd fly in the helicopters going from place to place, because every minute it could be something. And there were times where I knew that the gunners on those choppers were firing. They were firing at something because something had fired at us, right? There was gunfire. They were responding to it. Yeah, always kind of interesting to think about. Because I knew of plenty of people, I knew of people that were in the sister battalion to mine when I was in Texas at one point, and they had gone out the year prior to my unit going out, my first unit, and I remember going to a funeral back on post there of two folks that had been headed home, I think for mid-tour leave, and they were taking a Chinook to get to the place in Kuwait where they would get on commercial flights from and come home for a little while. But that Chinook was shot down, and everybody on board was killed, as I understand it. So I might not have all the details of that right, because I don't think I ever really fully knew, but that's what I remember being told. So yeah, and one of these guys was in basic training with me. Like, I didn't know him, but he was one of the other how would I say it? One of the other platoons, but he was in my same company. And we're fairly fresh out of basic, less than a year. And, here he is no longer with us. So anytime I'd gotten a Chinook, that was on my mind. I was in the chapel on base, and I was there for him and this other young lady that were from that sister battalion, or that sister, battalion, I should say. They had 18-gun salute for both of them. And, that struck a chord with me. I was like, man, I'm getting ready to go. And every moment could be it. You never know. But, some situations more than others. So there was definitely this sense of fear of death at times. But over time that kind of subsided, like I kind of got accustomed to that going. I was like, it's either going to happen or not, I think it's more the idea of the fear of pain, to the death, no to the pain. I don't think I'm quite familiar with that phrase. Yeah, it was more the pain thing that concerned me. I just was watching that with the kids. I was just watching Princess Bride with the kids this weekend. It's always been one of my favorites. My wife and I modeled our wedding after that film. Like at the reception, we had different tables set up, and each one was named after a different location from that film. Like one table was Gilder, the another table was Florin, one table was the Fire Swamp, one was Miracle Max's shop. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the heck out of that. Nice. Moomin. Smash that like button like a snare drum. You guys crack me up. Guys are killing me in the chat so much. Um, yeah, I think that was more my concern, was that it was going to be a massively painful experience, but I never knew what it was going to be like. I just spent some time thinking about it for a while. And I think as the years went on, it wasn't death that I was more so afraid of, but it was life, and it was my own potential for success. The more I considered things, the more I considered like what I could potentially have to lose, the more I gained. And I still think about that at times. Like, it's difficult for me to do things that I know are good for me and that will help me succeed. The more I've been familiar with Dr. Peterson's stuff, the more I've seen like practical steps to take in order to move forward and do better at the stuff I need to do. And I've been motivated to do it. All the while, I think more about like, man, when I'm in a position where I'm more successful, I have more to lose. I have more people who probably be aware of who I am. I'm probably in a state of more danger. I mean, look at Crowder. Crowder's getting like death threats all the time. Crowder has a fatwa, right, on his head. I guarantee Big Bear's had plenty of the same in his own ways. Plenty of these people that have come up in the YouTube sphere, right, and have some degree of celebrity now. Penders says he just tweeted this out like a leftist who got their marching orders from Hillary. That's funny. That's very, very funny. Man, you guys are killing me. I appreciate the likes. Keep them up. Yep. Hey, high like ratio. We shoot for this. We shoot for the sky on this stuff. The more response, the more interaction these videos have, the more traction they'll get within YouTube, and people will have them pop up in their search results, and the more people will get here. Is Big Drum going to do a Bob Ross skit? Well, you want to play those cymbals like happy little cymbals? Want to just nice, simple little strokes with the nylon brush, a number 2 nylon brush. We're going to go ahead and sweep that cymbal down there. Yeah, just look at it. Just look at it. Yeah, and then you're gonna take that brush and you're gonna beat the devil out of it. Just wonderful. Love that. There's my Bob Ross. How's that? Bob Ross, the drummer. Oh man, no, that's a great idea. That's a really great idea. I might have to do that. Ooh. I got to get a hold of an afro wig. Obviously, I don't have an afro anymore. Yeah, that's a thought for the future. I'm writing it down right now. I'm writing this flip down. Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, gotta get a pad of paper. Show ideas. All right. So we got chunk commercial coming. Let's see. Bob Ross. I just wrote Boob Ross. We can tell where my mind is. Drummer. Skit. Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's definitely gonna happen. All right. Bob Ross drummer skit. That's fixing to happen. When I get ideas from you guys that are just genius, I'm gonna have to write them down and make them happen. I never had an afro. Andrew J. Yeah, afro anymore. No, I never had one. Nothing even remotely close. I did have longer hair back in the day. Oh, do I? No, I was going to show you. I have a picture, but it's in the car. I'll have to see if I can get a digital copy of that and share that one tomorrow. Yeah, share old pictures of you tomorrow. Scan. Yep. Of me. It will be funny. That will be a good thing. So, yeah, I've considered it more and more that the potential for me to succeed in life is growing. Especially after yesterday, I felt like I'd never accomplish anything like that. Like, that interview went extremely well. the sound behaved. This little computer, this mid 2009 MacBook Pro that I got refurbished, I'm making it do way more things than it wants to do. And I think we saw that with the Chunk commercial. Like, it wasn't ready to do that, or at least I used a program that wasn't as good for compiling the audio with it. So I'll retry that, and I'll add some music to it as well. Maybe I'll just start with like still photos, and when I get to upgrade this system, maybe then I'll get into doing more like video commercials or something. But I can just do like the old, like Crowder used to do still photo ads, which is voiceover stuff. You know, that's totally doable. So I'll probably throw some things like that in for fun, because that would be fun. And it'd be simpler, it'd get done quicker, and you guys can enjoy. But there's a lot of stuff I can do, and I'm learning that. I'm seeing what the potential is here, and the feedback from it is increasingly positive. I'm getting attention in ways that I didn't expect to. You know, I'm having impact that I didn't expect to, and so knowing that is a little bit, how would I say? It's exhilarating, and it's a little uncomfortable at the same time, because I realize, well, I have the ability to scale this, to grow the reach that we have, and that means my responsibility level goes up, right? Like, I don't get to coast by getting to do this better. My work level is going to increase the better that this gets, because I'm going to need to do more. I want to get to a point where I can hire a not gay producer of some kind. They could be gay. It could happen. I mean, they might legally require me to say that they're not, though. We'll see. But that joke's been done. That belongs to somebody else, as funny as it is. Maybe they'll be not trans. No, it's kind of the same thing. Well, not really. The trans persons are like, it's not the same as gay. What are you saying? It's miss something me. Ooh. There's no word for it, you know, saying someone's gay when they're trans. I don't know. I have no idea what that would be called. Nobody expects the furry wave of popularity. You're absolutely right, Andrew J. Didn't see that coming at all. By the way, I don't know if anybody noticed it, but I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this. This might be tough. Let's see if I can share something with you. A window capture, maybe. Yeah, let's capture a window. So here's my YouTube dashboard, right? This is where I'm doing a lot of stuff from. I want you to see something right here in, did I change it? I think I did. In my description, right? Where it used to say, for more non-furry fun, follow me here, right, etc. But now it says, for more fun and insight, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, by the way. I am now up on Twitter, and that is right here at twitter.com/BigDrumBear1. So feel free to follow the heck out of that, share it with all your friends, and that way I can have far more reach and put the show out from Twitter and do other fun Twitter things. Twitter's quick and simple, and I can just have fun there. I'm curious to see what I can do with that, you know, see if I can get myself kicked off of Twitter. I don't know. It feels like it would be a badge of honor to get kicked off of Twitter. But you know, I just, to be able to say what I want to say, and to do it for a ridiculous reason, to be kicked off of Twitter, that would be hilarious. But yeah, it was just an interesting thing to share there. Oh, you can't see it. It's not even up yet. I'm like showing it to you, and I haven't even put up the window. I'm a little behind. I'm just showing you myself. So yeah, all that's true. I am on Twitter, and that's honest. But I'm trying to get this window to share it with you, what I see from my end. Some of you know, some of you don't. Usually I do things. I'm still using my OBS program to get a lot of this done. That's my weapon of choice. But I have to go through the live streaming gobbledygook to make it work. So here's what I'm seeing, right? This is the deal. This is my YouTube studio, so to speak. And then hey, come back. So this is what I was talking about. We'll zoom up here. And then it was this section. For more fun and insight, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter that used to say for more non-furry fun. So I got rid of that furry part just because I wanted to update things a little bit, but also maybe it won't be more furry influence here. I mean, they're welcome to come. But as you can see, yes, I am now on all three of these: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't have it up here because I don't know how to put a link for it, but I'm also on Snapchat. I have only done like 3 Snapchats thus far, maybe 2. Maybe I'll do some more. We'll see. It could be fun. I'm too nice to be kicked off anything. You might be right. But I don't think of myself as that way. I think of myself as a mean old cuss. You know, guys, I can get nasty. You ask my wife, I can get angry about stuff like, and I try to be restrained, but I can get, well, my dogs definitely drive me to be frustrated. I was saying that the other day, like, I can see myself being angry and being violent, like in response to something. I can visualize it in my head and then look at it and say, no, that's bad. Don't do that. But, I have felt the impulses to be as such, right? You know, and I'm aware that I felt those impulses, but not followed through on them. So is that meekness, like sheathing your sword, you know, standing there with a sheathed sword? I guess I've experienced it, or I've felt that, and it's intense. It's definitely intense. But yeah, sometimes it's frightening to move forward knowing things like that, knowing that I can be the kind of man that I can be at times. And seeing the potential for growth in this and other areas of my life, you know, going and becoming a more professional drummer, for example, doing better in that field. It's exhilarating and frightening at the same time because I'm aware of my own proclivities, my own potentials for horribleness, right? I'm aware of that. And so I also know that I'm not as tempered in those areas as I think I ought to be, right? I still have a long way to go with a lot of stuff in disciplining myself. I remember in Crowder's interview that I watched on Sunday with him and Ben Shapiro, which was hilarious, by the way. If you haven't seen it, go watch the Sunday special from Daily Wire from Ben Shapiro. Interviewing Steven Crowder, and he's wearing his Ranger panties the entire time. Crowder is making Ben massively uncomfortable. You know, just not exposing himself entirely, but pretty darn close, because those are tiny pants. It's so ridiculous, and they do resemble the type of short shorts that Rangers wear for physical training. So, or I should say, Marines. Marines tend to wear those for physical training. Was he wearing cowboy boots? I missed that. If he was wearing cowboy boots, I didn't see that. That's funny. I have to go back and check that out because that's flipping hilarious. That's so funny. Wow. And appropriate, right? So in the midst of that conversation, one of the things he talked about that really sort of struck me was that he goes to a psychologist, or, you know, he goes to talk to a psychologist regularly. And he's mentioned that before in the show. But, you know, of course, for him and his wife, and he's highly recommended relationship counseling. It's super important to maintain clear communication, you know. So I respect that. I appreciate that. But he says he also does it for himself. And part of it is because he has to discipline himself to rest. Like the level of work that goes into doing that show, it's like the work is never done as far as they're concerned. They just choose to stop at some point. They choose to say, okay, we got to stop for now. We got to take a break. We got to get out of here. So he's had to teach himself to stop at certain times. You know, he's had to choose to ensure that he eats, he takes rest, because he's so disciplined and motivated to do a show and to do it as professionally and well as he can. He's just motivated to keep working and keep working and keep working. But not only is he going to burn himself out, he'll burn his entire crew out if he keeps that way. And he knows it. Is that what happened? This is an addendum here. Says, I should say a side note. Is that what happened to Nake Jarrett and Sven Computer and Aaron the intern? I don't know. I really don't. I really am still curious to find out what the fudge is going on there, because I still think that there's some secrety thing going down. They're going to infiltrate. I don't know what they're going to do, but I just can't believe that it's not going to be awesome. And this is like a multi-month thing now. I guess it was only July when it happened, so it hasn't been that long. But if we get into like October or November and there's still not news on this, I'm going to be like, what is going on, man? Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed the plug of Penders Ugly Mug. And by the way, that's coming, right? That's going to be another one. Excuse me, good coffee. It's not as good as it could be. You know, might as well be a good time as any. It's good coffee, but it's not as good as it could be. You see, at certain times in your life, you need a beverage vessel, right? And you need one that's going to make sure that you have enough understanding of the legal system for you to navigate the problems you might experience in life as you become more successful, right? You're going to want to have good lawyer type instincts. What better way than to drink from a Penders Ugly Mug, which will, by drinking from it, automatically imbue you with an understanding of legalese, allegedly, and it will also fortify you with shekels galore so that you can afford to operate within the legal system. And when you've had a hard day, you know, just being a legal mastermind because of your now imbued Jewishness, you're going to need to relax, maybe with some good Manischewitz. So go ahead, pour yourself a cup of good Manischewitz. Maybe you could add a little bit of it to your coffee in the morning to just give you a nice chill vibe. But it will improve the taste of that Manischewitz by 54%, right? At least 10% more than the taste improvement of Crowder's hand-etched girthy mug. And you want that extra 10% because you got to tithe it up like the Jews. So keep that in mind. Look for this in about a month from now after the new moon, right? After you've heard Pender out there blowing on his shofar, celebrating that the cycles come around again. Be on the lookout for Penders Ugly Mug and drink to your pleasure. Mazel tov. Oh, man. I should write this stuff down. I really should. It's just so much fun. Because that's all riffing. All that is riffing. And it's so much fun to do. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go back through some of these episodes and look for that. You know, and Levi, if you ever feel like clipping some of that, yeah, feel free to make clips of all the different Pender commercials or things that you thought were funny. I'd love that. I would absolutely be overjoyed if you did a clip of this show. It would be honoring to me. I would be glad to it. If you ever if you have the time or inclination to ever clip me saying that's a blast, you feel free to do that too, because that's hilarious and I'd love to find that. And I don't know that I have the inclination to do it. Now, Kodiak, I want to ask you a question right now. Oh, Pender. A week and a half. Ooh. Hey guys, keep your eyes open. 1.5 weeks until Penders Ugly Mug. Should we have like a countdown? Maybe I'll put a clock until you re-release it. Like maybe Steve, send me a time and a day and I'll see if I can't get like a counter clock that'll count down until that time. That'd be really funny. What I ought to do is have a counter clock to let you all know as to when this is no longer going to be available. The Love Chunk or You're a Commie shirt, it's actually only got a short time left. And in fact, I might be able to show you the countdown in real time right now. But really the Love Chunk You're a Commie shirt, they are available in so many wonderful colors too. I mean, there's just a plethora of ideas you could get into with the chunk deal here. And I think you'd enjoy it. But I want to draw your attention back to the internet. And I'm going to bring up the, let's see here. Let's see if I have it. Hey, we do. We do have this. So what we're doing here is we've got the Don't See Red Love Chunk page here. And you can see we've sold 5, right? But we have 6 days, 13 hours, 12 minutes, and 54 seconds. And it's counting. You only have this long left to get yourself what you know you really want, right? And it's unbelievable. I don't know. It doesn't look like it's counting for you guys. It might. Oh, you know why? I know why it's not counting. I got to do this. Check this out. I'll make it count. Yeah, well, the seconds are counting. It's just you can't see them because they're not in frame. But watch this. Check this out. I'm learning all kinds of crazy things with this OBS. It's actually very, very fun. Yeah, that should fit in the window. I'm learning how I can make things do what I want them to do, and it just makes the show more cool. So I reframe that, and now you can enjoy that countdown just like me. The intensity of knowing that the time is running out. You too could be the holder of a love chunk or your Akami t-shirt in any of these incredible colors. Any of these amazing displays of juxtaposition between black and some other color. So, show the world that you're not a fan of failed ideologies. Show the world that you have some sense, that maybe you've read the Gulag Archipelago, even just a little bit, and that you know that communism is not only stupid, but even dogs are going to laugh at it, right? They'll mock it by dressing up in a Che Guevara beret. By the way, somebody suggested to me that we look at doing we look at doing like Che Guevara Diaries, like Che Guevara had his diaries or something that in his younger years, working up toward the point in which he became the revolutionary that he was. And I thought it would be neat to try and learn more about some of those because I'm vaguely familiar with them. But I'm going to dig into that, and I'm going to see if there are not some skits there because that could be pretty darn funny. That could be pretty hilarious to dig into and see if I get little bits with Chunk, writing away in his diary and reminding you he's not Hopper. He's not Hopper. No, he just thinks Hopper's pretty cool. I mean, I would too if I was Chunk. That's the face I get when I do the Chunk Hopper voice. It's no different. I mean, I'm not a French Canadian, so I can't get the true Hopper tone. But I get close, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it could be fun. I've always enjoyed that. There's something about doing it. See, my eyes are watering now. Try to do that one. It's kind of funny. I'm so emotional when I do a Hopper voice. That's what that is. But back to all seriousness, death and living through it, when we're faced with the depth of our own potential and at the same time the depth of our own depravity, we have to continually make a choice. Is the value in our pursuing the purpose in our lives great enough that we should face the suffering that comes along with pursuing that while we still have our own depravity? Like, is it worth risking losing everything? Peterson had a lecture some time ago, and it was sort of talking about the book of Job. He was doing a study into the book of Job, and he went pretty deep. And it was just a short clip from that class that he went into. But said Job is a story that really is an example of ultimate suffering. The worst things you can imagine. Those of you who are familiar with the book of Job, I know Peterson presents it like it's Satan and God having a bet about Job's life. I don't quite take it in that way because I don't reduce, at least from my perspective, I don't reduce God to simply looking at things in terms of being house, where he's just going to play with people's lives and bet. Like, that's not the character that's demonstrated of God throughout the rest of the Bible, that he just says, well, I'm just going to be flippant here and just do what the fudge ever I want to. just to be nasty, you know, for my own pleasure. Like there wasn't anything about his own pleasure in the midst of that, except that he was able to teach Job something, and he was able to teach Satan something in the midst of that situation. And so there was a greater good served. It does make someone wonder, well, if God could just say, no, Satan, you're not allowed to touch this person's life, then wouldn't that be good? Wouldn't that be better? But that assumes that we have the ability to determine morality based on our small little finite view of eternity, right? We see right now. We see the effects of our actions right now, maybe a little bit into the future, maybe even several years into the future. But we don't have the ability to look at the entirety of history from the beginning of time to the end of time in this universe and beyond that, and determine what is the best for any situation. What is the best that one could have happen in a situation that's going to most positively impact all people across all time, right? Somehow there are details there that, because we don't get, we're probably not qualified to make decisions concerning, right? But if we trust the first verse, right, and again, this is my perspective. Hey, no problem, Jace Bang Bang Bear. Welcome. You missed out on some funny impressions. Feel free to catch the replay, because I'm always about people replaying this as many times as you want. Kick those views on the videos up. I'd love to get to a point where video views are up to over 100 per video, and beyond. So yeah, feel free to replay, share it, love it, like it, comment, all that fun stuff. But right now we're mentioning a little bit of the book of Job, and Dr. Peterson having gone over that a bit. So just a little backstory on the book of Job for those that may not be as familiar with it. God allows Satan. Satan's walking around saying, "I've been walking to and fro in the earth, seeking whom I will devour." And God's, "Have you considered my servant Job?" He's not about to do that. He's not really going to just deny me. You have people who you can devour. Yes, you do have the ability to do that. I've given you that place, so to speak. But you're not going to do it unless I give you go ahead, and unless I say, all right, I'll allow it. But God's still in control of the situation, right? And so what we think of as horrible is that he lost all his kids. He lost all that he owned because he was massively wealthy, and he lost it all at once. Like, one servant comes up and says, all your stuff was stolen, all your sheep were stolen, all the such and such were killed. I can't remember. I'd have to read that book specifically to know exactly what he lost there, but he lost everything, and one servant after another. While that servant was still talking, another servant came up and said, hey, you lost this as well. Another servant came up before that one had finished talking and said, your kids were all together, all of your kids in a house together, and a storm came up, destroyed the house, it flattened it, and they're dead. They've been squashed to death. All of that, all at once. Like, there's no room between being told. It's all just boom, boom, boom. And then he gets a skin disease, and it's horrific, and he's in absolute terrible state. Then his wife says, curse God and die. What's the problem with you, right? Like, obviously this is horrific. Why would you not do this? Why would you not just curse God and die? And he's saying, no, I'm going to praise God. At every stage, he dropped his knees in anguish, but he prayed to God. He said, nope, I worship God. You give, you take away. I'm not going to say otherwise. Everything I have because you, right? Period. I recognize that. I don't breathe unless you say so. You're the creator. You're the head honcho. You're in charge. You built this universe. You decide how it goes, right? And that's appropriate. Like, I completely accept that situation. That's appropriate. Like, and what are we going to do, right? We clearly don't have the capacity to not only create a universe on our own, right? To create life in the way, and despite what's been said, we have never actually created life in a laboratory. Go back and look at those experiments in the 50s, I want to say it was, and look at what people actually did when they claimed that they created life in a laboratory. Didn't happen. There's a lot of other issues that went on there. They manipulated the environment that they were using. They claimed it was like proto environment of the Earth, where life probably would have first formed. They removed a number of elements that were toxic to life that would have been existent in previous universe and allowed for certain things to grow, right? Certain, I can't remember what it is that they actually cultivated in there, bacteria or something. But Kodiak killing me. Truly creating life as if it was the proto environment of the Earth. Not so much what that experiment included. At any rate, we don't have the ability to do that, nor do we have the ability to manage it, right, appropriately. We don't have the ability to balance every detail that would ever be included in all life of throughout all time. That is so far beyond us, and it's obvious. It's obvious that that is beyond any human being, no matter how enlightened you are or become. You're not there. Will you be one day? I think it's laughable to suspect. I think it's honestly laughable to even think that you could ever be there, right? Does it mean that you should not aspire to be better than you are? Absolutely not. You should continue to aspire to grow, right? But recognize that there is authority over you. Recognize that obviously something else had a part to play in managing everything that it takes for you to exist from moment to moment. And again, right, if you come from an atheistic background, that's fine. I'm just telling you from my perspective, you know, you can take it for what you want. I think that it's the true perspective. I think I'm right. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think so. And I think some of these reasonings demonstrate that, at least to some degree. It's not comprehensive. It's not total in its scope, but it's an element of this whole discussion. And I think it's a very important element. I think that recognizing that the state of the universe we find ourselves in is so incredibly complex that it takes continual management for it to not go out of whack entirely, right? It takes guiding principles. It takes guiding forces that have to be in operation continually and work in concert in order for things to be sustained, right? And our recognition of the fact that we don't embody that even remotely, the capacity for that type of management, I think is huge. When you recognize that if it were up to you, you'd probably make a horrific mess of it. You would bring about destruction and terror. You think back to the Lord of the Rings, and I think it was the Fellowship of the Rings. It was the first one of those, and obviously the books, but I'm thinking of the films because the film dramatized this moment in a really, really intense way. When they're in the woods, it's after Gandalf died. After Gandalf, died. Those of you that haven't seen it, no spoilers. Other than that Gandalf died, right? As far as we all know. It's if you haven't seen it by now, it's a little sad. It's been a while. Although I didn't see The Fugitive until like early 2000s, like 2000 or 2001, till I saw The Fugitive all the way through for the first time. But The Fugitive and Lord of the Rings, not the same scope of films. Good though Harrison Ford is. When I was watching that scene from The Lord of the Rings, Galadriel, that lady elf, she is talking with Frodo, and he's looking into this mirror, this little like water basin that's going to let him see the future and see some other things. And he sees the eye of Sauron at one point in his vision. Well, Galadriel says, "I know what you've seen because I've seen it too," you know, and she tells him that it's up to him. He has to be the one to bear the ring and get it to Mordor and get it destroyed. And he thinks, I don't think I'm ready to bear this burden. I don't think I can handle it. And he offers the ring to her. He says, would you take it? Maybe you're strong enough. Maybe you're in a better position to do this. And she says, the test has come to me, right? You put it before me, and I admit that I have desired this. I have wanted this, right? She's honest about her own depravity. I've wanted this ring of power, knowing that nobody can have it, knowing that it brings destruction and death, right? Knowing that unlimited power in my hands would be a bad idea. And then she demonstrates that to him. You know, I would desire to do good with it, but instead of a dark lord, you would have a dark queen, and she changes her visage completely. She becomes like this. It's all in like negative color separations and stuff, and it's all dark and freaking out, and her voice goes deep and wild and crazy. She's like, I would be dark and terrible as the dawn, or something like that. She's like, all would love me and despair. And she just has this like psycho crazy moment. It's pretty intense. But then she settles down for a moment. She's like, okay, I've been honest about it. I've let it all out. I've said the truth, what I would do if I had this ring, because I could take it from you right now. I could probably do that. But I'm still able to have some degree of restraint. I'm still able to recognize no, right? Even in the face of it. I don't know. It strikes me as interesting that the more... You're killing me, man. That's too funny, dude. I missed some of those. I'm going to have to go back and read the chat in a minute. I'm going to lose my train of thought if I do, though, right now. So the idea here is that when we're confronted with the potential for great power, and then recognize that we're nowhere near ready or prepared to hold it, nor would we necessarily ever be, we recognize that for us, incomplete beings, ultimate power corrupts. That is, I don't know, I'm thinking how I would word that. That's probably one of the best places to be in, and I hope and pray that I keep staying in that place where I recognize that there's so many examples of like deeper power corrupting people unless you grow yourself appropriately along the way. But too much power too soon, right? The wrong kind of power too soon. Am I going to be willing to pass it up if it comes before me? Am I going to be willing to pass up corruptness if it comes before me? And it starts in little things. I mean, you have to cultivate little things like, am I ordering my day, right? Am I organizing myself? Am I saying, I want to take this show bigger? Like today, I recognized, okay, I could try to make, it's not quite the same thing, but I tried to make a commercial thing the other day with Chunk, and it didn't work out right. Like the audio was a mess. And I thought, well, I could keep trying to push for that, but what's going to happen right now? My computer probably isn't prepared to handle all of that. I could do some of it, and I could probably make it work, but I'm probably going to spend way too much time working on that to try and make that happen instead of focusing on doing a good show, having a good conversation with people, having a good food for thought, so to speak, for them to consider every day and to encourage. And that's really what I want to do. I want to share my interests. I want to share my experiences in life in a way that improves the quality of your life, because you have some encouragement to say somebody else has been in some rough places as well, and they're still pushing forward. I can push forward too. I can keep taking the next step. Somebody else may have times right now where they don't want to take the next step, where they're like, man, I could coast. I could just sit back and not go forward because there's a lot of heavy stuff with going forward in my life. And, I could just try to squeak by, and deal with the simple issues that I have to deal with now instead of welcoming more issues toward my life, more conflict, more difficulty. But I know that that's not what I'm called to. I know that that's so beneath me, and I know that there's so many people that could be positively impacted, myself for one, my family for another, the more that I push forward. And that's what I got into this for in the first place, was to create something where I could do what I know I'm good at-ish, right? That I have some proclivities toward, and that I could perhaps create some kind of a space for me to have an ability to share my thoughts with other people, to have an outlet, to have an interaction with folks that are similar in mind, about a lot of these different things, to grow myself, to have some accountability. All these things are built into it, to create some revenue streams, to grow some things, because I got to keep moving. I got to earn stuff, to create opportunities to work with people, right? To do music with other amazing folks out there. all of that comes out through this, right? It's a potential. And if I didn't pursue it, knowing that there are pitfalls, then it's cowardice, it's weak, it doesn't bode well for me, or as an example to my kids as they're growing. It's like, well, Dad just played it safe his whole life. He just wanted to stay in the simple little issues that he had. He didn't go forward. He didn't try to improve himself so that he could deal with better stuff. And at the same time, didn't put himself in a position to ever be confronted with greater capabilities, greater power that he should have to make choices with, right? I could get handed, like I said, kind of like the Galadriel thing. I could get handed great potentials, great powers, but at what cost, right? And unless I am presented with those choices, I'll never really know what I'm made of, you know? And I'm going to get presented with those kind of things sooner or later, right? So better be in a position to continually build myself, right? So that when I am presented with tough situations, tough choices, which are inevitably going to happen in some form or another, that I've been grooming myself, that I've been putting myself around other people that have the desire to grow in that way, where their character is growing to make choices that they can be proud of, that they think other people in their life would be proud of them making. There's a lot of stuff to say. I think some of it makes sense to most of you. But what are we really afraid of? Are we afraid of death? I think some of us are. I think that the idea of death, more the pain of death, to the pain, that's more concerning to a lot of people in some ways. But I think beyond even to the pain is, or well, I'm sorry, to the pain of death, to the pain of life. That's kind of what I'm saying. Living through horrific choices, right? The sound of our failure, right? The sound of our ugly mug being talked about will echo in our perfect ears forever. We're afraid of that freakish misery we're going to be left in with our perfect ears to hear all of it. I can't get that scene out of my head. It's too funny. It's possible, pig. It's conceivable, you miserable vomitous mass. Oh man, those insults still get me. At any rate, no, I'm not calling all of you miserable vomitous masses. The sound, the sight, the taste of Penders Ugly Mug. Yes, I think I would agree with that, Inspector Bear. I often get concerned too. Inspector says I don't fear death for myself. I fear what is left when I'm gone, that I have no way to deal with or help the situation. Yeah, I think about that too. I think, boy, there's so many, like my kids, for example, they still have a life to live. They have stuff to grow in. And if I'm not around, I won't be here to help them with that. Now, I'm less afraid of that than I used to be, because I know that other people will be brought into their life. I have a trust that God is capable of bringing other people along in their life to help them deal with that. Doesn't mean that how would I say it? I consider myself, to some degree expendable. Ultimately, like no one person I think is so important that they can't have their purpose put upon the shoulders of another. I think that's entirely possible. However, I think that our value is still great, and maybe there'll be something lost. There's still a cost in it, right? There's still a great cost in us not being here. I think back to Joseph, right? I think this is a worthwhile example. Joseph, from the book of Genesis, Joseph in the coat of many colors, Joseph. And his brothers tossed him in a well for 3 days, and then they were thinking of just leaving him there to die. Instead, they sold him into slavery to go down in Egypt, right? And that's a pretty intense thing for brothers to do to one another. But they did that, I should say. And Joseph went through some horrendous things, some horrendous persecution, some awful, awful situations, but it came out being the number 2 guy in Egypt and saved his entire family from famine. Was it possible that not happen? Yeah, I think it was possible that didn't have to happen, right? I think that Joseph could have gotten into that position otherwise, right, without having to go through all those different things. I think maybe there was a way that if his brothers didn't do horrible things, that God could still use people's obedience. Like, I don't think he has to use people's disobedience all the time, but he does, right? People doing awful things. He can make good come out of it. And let's take it even further back. What could the world have been like if Adam and Eve hadn't eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? What if they didn't do that? Could life still have been amazing? Could we still have had deep relationship with God? I think absolutely. I think a world without sin was ultimately the goal, right? I personally do. A world where we are living in true relationship, where that relationship's not been broken. That's the idea. Like, you live in a relationship, say, with your spouse. The idea is that you live in that relationship where you have trust, where you have deep communication, and you're treating each other with respect every day. Like, that's a good thing. You want that, right? Conflict is useful too. You grow, you learn things. But let's say that that wasn't necessary, that you knew what to do and you did it. There's going to be enough conflict from other sources, right? That you can deal with together, right? If you are more locked in with each other and you're not being negative to one another, you're not kicking each other's butts, with heinousness toward one another, then it's a much better existence, when you can say about your wife or your husband, like, I am so thankful for them. I'm so grateful for them in the midst of this horrible, horrible situation we're having to face. That's better. That's better than, yeah, they're kind of an idiot some of the time, and it's frustrating, or they did this thing to me that sucks. Now you've got to deal with the animosity in the relationship on top of the stuff that you're going to face together. Yeah, Honky, I have to apologize a little bit because I didn't think about that before I went into this, and I got nothing but love for you and your situation, man. I do, and I don't mean to tweak the heartstrings in a negative way that way. I mean to say, how would I put this? I mean to say exactly what I'm saying, but I also mean to say that whatever the situation that we experience, right? It shouldn't have had to happen, right? Like, God doesn't mean for horrible stuff to go on. It could be good even without those things happening. Like, I don't want us to get in the idea that, like, God has to have bad things happen to us in order for this world to go forward, right? It doesn't have to be always bad, but people make choices, and people have been making choices from the beginning. And because of those choices that people have made since the beginning, we, generations down the line, feel the effects. Now we go through suffering. Now we go through intense, horrific stuff, right? And it's awful. It's not good at all, right? And we could say, I want to just sit in my little corner and just do whatever I'm doing and then just chill, make it simple, make it, not reach out, not extend myself, because I open myself up to more suffering. I open myself up to the potential of even worse things, right? I risk that, right? Especially difficult after you've already experienced something horrific, especially difficult. But when you do take that risk, when you do step out, even when you've been burned, even when you've had horrible, horrible stuff that I can't even conceive of, right? I've experienced stuff that plenty of people haven't and can't quite conceive of in the way that I've gone through it. Honky's done that. Honky's been there. He's there now. He's living through it. And he can attest to that just like the rest of us. I know plenty of people who've had far worse situations than either one of us that I don't want to imagine, right? Anytime you think your situation's awful, and it is, no diminishment to anything any one of us has ever experienced, you go read something like Gulag Archipelago and you're like, man, I didn't go through that. I didn't go through that. I haven't yet. And I'm still here. And there are still people that could be positively impacted by my pursuing to be better every day, to improve whatever thing I can, right? Then you have that as your motivation to go forward. You have that as your pull to say, face the suffering regardless, because that is the natural state you're going to have. You're still going to get it, right? And You can't control you having less. You may think you can. It's an illusion, right? All you're going to do is put yourself in a position to be less prepared to face it. All you're going to do is put yourself in a position to be weaker when more waves of suffering hit you. Choose to face it strong. Choose to face it head on. You bring the fight to the suffering. They taught us that in Raven training. When I was training for the Phoenix Raven program, I was a candidate for a little while, but it's like a special subset of the security forces field in the Air Force, and I was in the running for that for a little bit and went through some of the trainings we did. And part of that was baton training, and the instructor would be dressed up in a suit of red pads, right? And you'd have to go with this training baton and hit them at certain key spots. And when you hit them properly, when you use right technique, when you brought them down, they would respond. And they would actually go down for a few seconds, right? They'd drop to the ground for a minute or get out of the fight for a few seconds. And then they'd come back in and you'd be right back at it with another attacker, basically, is what they're pretending to be. Like in the school for it, you're facing multiple attackers, multiple instructors all dressed in the red man suits. But they constantly told you need to bring the fight to your attacker. You need to bring the fight to them, right? Don't give them the upper hand and let them dictate how it's going to go. You bring it to them. You diminish their preparedness. You face them head on, right? That's a tough lesson to learn because my instinct is to back away. My instinct is to get hurt less, right? And I don't. I put myself in a worse position. I'm more likely to get destroyed by the attack. You're right. You're right, Honky. I hear what you're saying, man. You do have times where you have to be strategic with it, right? That's another part of it too. But always keep your willingness open to keep facing stuff for the betterment of yourself and those around you. Because if you shrink in, if you fear to live, if you fear to move forward because there's probably more pain in there, it's just a guarantee that you're going to face it, and you're going to face it in a weaker position. Man. I thought about for a little bit today, not even doing a stream, because I felt like, man, I'm tired. I've got some other things I want to do, today, get done. And I don't know if I want to sit down and try to hash another one out, but I know I need to. I know I've already begun this. I don't always feel full energy for this every day because it's just me trying to put all this together. It's just me trying to take it another step further forward, and to speak something of worth, right, from my experiences to share with you guys. And I don't always know what it's going to be. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I don't even know my words are worthwhile to anybody. But when I see the interaction I have with all of you, when I see the gratefulness that a lot of you have had toward this stream being up, I can't not do it. I can't not. And if I do, you can bet it's because something else came up that was such a priority. I had to deal with that. But this has become a huge priority. This has become huge. Honky, I'm reading what you're saying. I think the only thing that I can speak to in there is to say, my heart's with you a million times over, man, because I don't comprehend it. I've been without a wife. I've been in a situation where I had a wife and now I'm not in that marriage, right? I didn't have that anymore. So that's not the same. But I do know what it's like to not have a wife by your side, to an extent that's on your side, that's there to support you. I know what that's like. And in some ways, I think that my situation was easier than yours in a lot of ways, because that happened little by little, and she was ready to not be by my side. She didn't want to be anymore. And I get that. But through that process, I think the biggest thing I learned was that I was never alone in that process, with or without her. And you're not either. And you know that. You're not alone. Your true source of strength, and I had to bring that to my new marriage. The true source of strength for me, or for my wife now, for any of us, has to come from the Almighty. We have to have that relationship in line there. I teach all of my students, I teach all of my students that it's Luke 2:52. Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. And that end part is like twofold. It's like why I say what I say at the end of the show: engage your heart, your body, or your mind, your heart, your mind, your body, and your heart, and seek to serve the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is that relationship that you have with the Creator, with the one who founded this universe, who put you here, who gave you a reason for being, and then enabled you to have relationship with others. That one that created the universe, from those of us that have a biblical view, came down in the form of a man. He sent his son. He sent this part of himself to go through ultimate suffering. And you don't think that the creator of the universe was going through suffering in that? You don't imagine that, like a father watching his child voluntarily go through horror and suffering has to be incredibly disturbing and horrific to watch. And yet, it has to happen. It has to go on. You don't think God was terrified, not terrified, I don't know what it'd be, mortified, perhaps, like absolutely felt emotional pain for what Job was going through. Like, from God's perspective, yeah, maybe what Job went through was a drop in the bucket compared to what God's perspective is on how horrible things can be for you. But you don't think that God doesn't like that still? Like my third son broke his arm a couple years ago, jumped off of a jungle gym only from like 3 feet up, which is mind blowing. But he caught his foot on the bottom rung, right? It hooked on the bottom rung of it as he jumped. And he fell forward and landed on his arm. And we didn't know right away that he'd broken and gotten a fracture in there. But he did. I hated it. Was it a small drop in the bucket? Yeah. I mean, it was a tiny fracture. He didn't even have a cast. He had a sling for 6 weeks, right? Thank God it wasn't worse. But that's all he did, right? That was it. 1,000,001 other things that could have happened to him that could have been a gazillion times worse, right? I can't conceive of what people go through when they have a child in the ICU, or they've had a child that's been brutally beaten or worse. I can't conceive of that, and I pray to God I never will, or that if and when that ever does happen, I still pray it doesn't, but if and when it does, that I have the strength of character, the strength of trust in Him to endure that and be there for others, because there's going to be others suffering through the midst of it too. That's another thing that I'm reminded of, is that any horrific thing that I've suffered, there's others that are suffering it as well, and they're going to need connection and relationship with me to enable to endure it. We ultimately have to rely on a relationship with God, and some people are better at doing that than others. I think in some ways my wife is really good at it. She thinks in some ways I'm better at it than her. But we have a ton of things that we're facing, every day. And we have 1,000,001 reasons to get out of the fight, to back off, to just coast and just try to get through it. Just try to deal with our own issues. Try to minimize the suffering as much as we can by not going and seeking other situations which have a potential to bring more suffering into our lives. Or we can face things that are going to not only be for our good, but for the good of others, quite potentially, that have a greater probability of that. Yes, they carry a risk of bringing more suffering as well, but we can't escape it. We can't get away from it no matter what we try. There's a film some of you may have seen. It's called The Village, and it was an M. Night Shyamalan film. Some people think it's hokey. Some people think it's kind of ridiculous. But the message there strikes me all of a sudden. I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. If you have, you know what I'm talking about. The elders of the town and their reasons for establishing the town that they did, away from civilization, away from the cares of the world. They took great pains to just bring about this society, if you will, this small little town. Isolated from the negatives of the whole world, the horrific things that many of them had experienced. And yet, suffering still visited upon them. Horrific suffering still came to them. And yet, one of them, who was already experiencing suffering in her life, but who had accepted it, someone who had accepted the suffering she was given to live with in her life. She accepted that, and she faced the potential of more suffering, more lack of certainty, so that she might have a chance, a fighting chance, to save someone she loved. If you haven't seen that one, it's worth a watch. It's interesting. It's a little bit of a scary, but I don't know. Some people say that Shyamalan's predictable. I don't know. I really liked it. Even after, I mean, it's like you think, oh, watch it once and the surprise is spoiled. But I still love that film. I still think it's extremely beautiful in the way it's put together. And it's a great reminder now that it's occurring to me of this point that I'm talking about today. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that if we don't keep pressing, if we don't keep seeking to do what we're called to do, start in the simple, and face the challenges that are ahead of us, they're going to hit us anyway, but we're going to be more prepared. We're going to have our head on us a lot better if we just face them openly, stand up straight with our shoulders back, and just be open to experiencing the world. Because as much suffering as we have, there's a gazillion and one other people that have more than we would ever desire to even remotely smell. I love all you bears. Honky, I love you deeply, man. I know I touched some chords for some of y'all today, and touch it for myself a little bit too. I hope y'all walk away from today with a willingness to hold your head up a little bit and put those shoulders back and say, you know what? People need me. People need me to face the life that is in front of me. As much desire I have to not feel pain, you know, to not invite more. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. All right, bears. Engage your mind, engage your body, and engage your heart, and seek to serve the ultimate purpose with everything you do. Love you guys. Peace, bears.